Is absolutely real. We are breaking down a massive nationwide technological conspiracy, a heist that's literally targeting the foundation of India's public recruitment system. We're talking about highly sophisticated syndicates building underground networks, hijacking secure software, and even hiding secret chambers just to rig competitive exams, like the SSC Delhi police recruitment. Now, to really wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this operation, you just need to hear one number: 10 lakh rupees. Yeah, 10 lakh. That's the staggering fee these syndicates are charging desperate candidates. You hand over 10 lakh, and they practically guarantee you'll pass. But wait, how on earth do you guarantee a pass in a highly secure, modern, computerized government exam? Well, the answer is a sprawling, multi-state network of hackers and corrupt officials. And honestly, their methods, they're mind-blowing. But actually, before we get into the crazy tech, we gotta look at the real-world fallout. Because for honest students, this was devastating. They faced sudden cancellations and shattered dreams, totally unaware that these so-called server faults were actually the result of unseen, remote hacks crashing the system. Picture this. You show up at an exam center in Kanpur for the first shift of the Delhi police exam. You've studied for months, and the gates are just locked. They tell you, oh, it's an electrical or server issue, and boom, the exam is abruptly canceled.
The Jodhpur network.
Okay, let's dive right into this and trace how they pulled this off node by node. Stop number 1, the Marwar Institute in Jodhpur. Police got a confidential tip about remote desktop apps being used to cheat, so they actually raided the center right in the middle of an active exam shift. When they confronted the center superintendent, a guy named Pemaram, he panicked. Literally right in front of the cops, he grabs his Samsung Galaxy Fold 5 and frantically starts deleting the AnyDesk app. He was trying to wipe the digital footprints of a massive remote access ring on the spot. Naturally, the police forced him to reinstall it, but he'd already wiped the logs and the usage history clean. The investigators didn't just give up there, though. They managed to recover deleted WhatsApp data from that very phone, and that data blew the whole operation wide open. The chats proved this wasn't just a local scam. They revealed an active, highly suspicious control connection that stretched all the way across international borders, specifically to a +977 number. Yep, a number in Nepal. This entire exam manipulation was being coordinated internationally. Noida 2, the Noida software breach. Let's see how this builds in complexity as we shift our focus over to Noida, Uttar Pradesh. See, this wasn't just someone smuggling a smartphone into an exam hall in their shoe. This was a highly technical, sophisticated firewall bypass. Hackers specifically targeted the testing software provided by a company called Eduquery. And to do this without setting off any security alarms, they used a heavy-duty reverse engineering tool called Ghidra. They literally modified the core Ubuntu binaries of the software. Then they snuck in and physically wired a secret proxy server right between the local network switch and the candidate's computer. Once that was hooked up, they generated a remote access link and sent it off to a solver hiding out completely off-site. And this brilliantly illustrates just how bizarre the reality inside the exam hall actually was. Imagine being the candidate. You just sit there, quietly staring at the screen. Your only real job, literally just wiggle the mouse every now and then so the screen doesn't go to sleep and the invigilators don't get suspicious. That's it. Meanwhile, miles away in a completely different city, say Ghaziabad, the solver has full remote control of your machine via those proxy servers. This highly proficient expert silently takes the entire test for you. When they finish, they switch off the proxy server, the computer goes back to normal, and the candidate just leans over and clicks submit. Wild, right? Node 3, the Jammu hardware bypass. So far, we've talked about software manipulation and remote access apps. But if we compare these regional news reports, we start seeing a major shift towards massive physical infrastructure bypasses. You've got a Jodhpur raid exposing remote apps on one hand, contrasting directly with reports out of Samba, Jammu on the other. It really visually reinforces the multi-state scale of this whole thing. We're not talking about a few rogue actors here. This is a sprawling, geographically expanding syndicate that is constantly adapting its tactics to beat whatever new security measures get thrown their way. In fact, out in a deserted area of Gugwal in Jammu, they went to extreme environmental lengths. To make sure they weren't detected, syndicate members actually rented a room near the exam center, grabbed some shovels, and dug into the earth. They literally buried underground cables, laying a physical wire all the way into the exam center to create an undetected ghost network. By doing this, they could remotely access the exam computers without ever having to touch the officially monitored Wi-Fi or local area networks. Node 4, the Dehradun Chamber. Which brings us to the absolute climax of this investigation. Acting on another confidential tip, investigators raided the MKP Inter College down in Dehradun.
They walked into the UPS room, just a totally normal utility room where they keep the building's backup batteries. But tucked away in a corner, they found something straight out of a spy novel. It was a secret, custom-built underground chamber, exactly 24 by 24 inches wide and about 12 inches deep, perfectly concealed underneath this unassuming gray plastic lid. Every single morning at 6 a.m., a dedicated syndicate member, whose only job was to manage this hole, would open it up and boot up the equipment hidden inside. When the cops finally lifted that gray lid, they uncovered an absolute buried treasure chest of fraud. Down in that hole, there were 2 Dell laptops actively running, just sitting there facing each other. There were Zebronics USB to Ethernet adapters, a Digicel router, and active proxy connections, where investigators could literally watch the mouse cursors moving around on the screens, being remotely controlled by solvers miles away. The whole shebang was just running silently, buried right there in the floor, while the official exam was taking place right above them.
The real-world impact.
Look, I know it's super easy to get caught up in the cool factor of all this technology, the reverse engineering, the buried cables, the secret underground chambers, but we have to pivot and look at the harsh reality here. Let's look at the actual results. These 2 recovered scorecards from the compromised centers, they both show a nearly perfect score of 98.75. Because these solvers are absolute experts in these subjects, they crank out unnaturally high scores, which completely skews the entire grading curve. So every time this syndicate successfully deployed a proxy server or hit a laptop in the floor, they were quite literally stealing seats from honest, hardworking candidates who dedicated years of their lives to passing these public service exams.
So what does this all mean? Well, the crucial takeaway here is the sheer scale of financial extortion driving the whole operation. Remember that number? The syndicates charge 10 lakh rupees per candidate, and they demand 4 lakh, paid straight up in advance, just to secure the proxy setup. This massive technological heist, with its international connections in Nepal, software manipulation in Noida, buried cables in Jammu, and hidden chambers in Dehradun, it is, at its core, a highly lucrative criminal enterprise designed to bleed the system for millions upon millions of rupees. Which leaves us with a critical question to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. If criminal syndicates have the resources and the absolute audacity to engineer underground ghost networks, reverse engineer secure software binaries, and literally build hidden chambers into the floors of examination halls, how can we ever guarantee the integrity of our next generation of public servants? The authorities are definitely fighting back, but as the tech evolves, so does the heist. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this incredible investigation. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you in the next one.